Imagine this, you're lying on a hospital bed, your eyes are closed, your heart is stopped, doctors pronounce you dead, relatives are crying, it's all over. But what if at that very moment, you can still hear every single word, every sob, every whisper, every goodbye? Sounds like a horror movie plot, right? But thousands of people claim this is reality. Everyone has heard that after death, a person can still hear everything for some time. But is it true? Or is it just a beautiful myth we invented to comfort ourselves? Today, we will break down this question from start to finish. Science, religion, eyewitness accounts, and shocking experiments. Watch until the end because the final fact will turn everything you thought about death upside down. To figure this out, we need to travel far into the past. Very far. Ancient Egypt. 3,500 years ago. Pyramids and pharaohs. Egyptians believed that the soul does not leave the body immediately. It lingers nearby. That's why priests read spells from the Book of the Dead right over the body of the deceased. They were convinced the dead person hears every word and it helps them in the afterlife. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, Bardo Thadal, written in the 8th century, says the same thing. Buddhist monks read instructions to the dying person to guide their consciousness. They believed that hearing is the last sense to fade after death. Let's jump to medieval Europe. Christian traditions. Priests gave last rites and said prayers at the deathbed. It was believed that even after the last breath, the soul is still nearby and listens to the words. In Islamic tradition, Surah Yasin from the Quran is recited over the deceased. The belief that the dead can hear unites completely different cultures and eras. But it's not just religion. Slavic folk beliefs contain similar ideas. In old Russia, it was believed you must not speak ill of the dead while they're still in the house. They hear everything. Professional mourners addressed the dead directly, asked questions, and begged forgiveness. In Japanese culture, there is a ritual called Matsugo no Mizu, moistening the lips of the deceased. During this, relatives speak to the deceased, say goodbye, and pass along messages. It turns out that for thousands of years, completely different peoples came to the same conclusion. The dead can hear. But where did they all get this idea? Coincidence? Or is there something behind it? Perhaps our ancestors observed something that we are only now beginning to explain with science. But more on that later. First, let's examine the arguments of those who believe in this idea. So arguments 4. Why do so many people believe that the dead can hear? Argument number 1. The University of Vancouver study, 2020. Scientists from the University of British Columbia conducted an experiment with dying hospice patients. They connected an electroencephalograph to the brains of patients who were in their final moments, and they discovered something astonishing. The brain responded to sounds even when the patient showed no external signs of life whatsoever. The auditory cortex continued to process sound signals in the last minutes before death. Dr. Elizabeth Blunden, lead researcher, stated that the data suggests a dying person may still be able to hear at the very end. Argument number 2. The case of Pamela Reynolds, one of the most famous near-death experiences. In 1991, she underwent brain surgery to remove an aneurysm. During the operation, her body was cooled to 15 degrees Celsius. Blood was completely drained from her brain. The EEG showed a flat line. By all medical standards, she was dead. But after the surgery, Pamela described in detail the surgeon's conversations and the sounds of instruments. She even remembered which song was playing in the operating room, and the doctors confirmed it. Argument number 3. Sam Parnia's research within the AWARE project. Dr. Sam Parnia from New York University studied patients who survived cardiac arrest. Out of more than 1,000 cases, about 40% of patients reported some conscious experience. Many of them claimed they heard the medical staff talking while they were clinically dead. Some quoted doctors' phrases word for word that were said after cardiac arrest. Parnia suggested that consciousness may persist longer than we thought. Argument number 4. Brain physiology. The brain doesn't die instantly. It's not a switch that flips and then darkness. Neurons continue to work for minutes to hours after the heart stops. The auditory cortex is located in the temporal lobe, one of the most resistant to oxygen deprivation. This means that theoretically, the ears and brain can still process sounds for some time after death. Argument number 5. The 2023 experiment at the University of Michigan. Scientists recorded a surge of brain activity in several patients at the moment of dying. This surge occurred in areas associated with hearing and consciousness. Researchers called it the final firework of the brain, the last burst of neural activity. The brain seems to gather its last resources and directs them toward perceiving the surrounding world. Argument number 6. Testimonies from medical professionals. Nurses and palliative care doctors have been reporting the same thing for decades. When relatives talk to the dying person, their vital signs change. Heart rate increases, tears appear, sometimes barely noticeable lip movements. It's not scientific proof, but thousands of matching observations. That's data too. In total, we have experiments, studies, physiology, and testimonies. Impressive. But don't rush to conclusions, because science has serious counter-arguments. And now the arguments against, and they are also very compelling. Counter-argument number 1. The difference between hearing and being aware. Yes, the auditory cortex can respond to sounds, but responding does not mean understanding. Your phone also responds to sound when it vibrates, but it doesn't hear anything. Neural activity is electrical impulses, not necessarily conscious experience. When we sleep, the brain also responds to sounds, but we are not aware of them. The same thing may happen with the dying brain. Response without perception. Counter-argument number 2, the problem with near-death experiences. Near-death experience, or NDE, consists of memories from people who came back. Keyword, came back. They were not truly dead. Their brain continued to function, even if at a minimal level. Clinical death is not biological death. It is a reversible condition. The fact that a person heard something during clinical death doesn't prove that the dead can hear, because they were not dead. They were dying, and that's completely different. Counter-argument number 3, false memories. Our brain is a genius deceiver. It constantly creates false memories. Elizabeth Loftus's experiments proved that people can remember events that never happened. A patient who woke up after clinical death could have unconsciously gathered information from fragments. Fragments of conversations before losing consciousness, noises during resuscitation, words after waking up. The brain glues it all together into one story and presents it as a complete memory. Counter-argument number 4, chemical chaos in the dying brain. At the moment of dying, the brain releases massive amounts of chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins. This can cause powerful hallucinations, a sensation of light at the end of a tunnel, a feeling of peace. Dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, is a powerful hallucinogen that the brain produces on its own. There is a hypothesis that the brain releases DMT at the moment of death, creating vivid experiences. So everything the dying person hears may simply be a chemical hallucination. Counter-argument number 5, animal studies. Experiments on rats showed that the surge of brain activity after death lasts no more than 30 seconds. After that, complete electrical silence sets in. Irreversible. 30 seconds, not minutes, not hours, 30 seconds. And even during those 30 seconds, it's unclear whether there's conscious perception or just noise from dying neurons. Counter-argument number 6, the irreversibility of true death. When the brain completely loses oxygen, neurons begin to break down. Synapses stop transmitting signals. Cell membranes disintegrate. Without functioning synapses, no information processing is possible, including sound. When the brain is dead, it's dead. It's not sleep, it's not a coma, it's the end. Counter-argument number 7, confirmation bias. People tend to remember only cases that confirm their beliefs. This is called confirmation bias. A nurse who believes the dying can hear will notice any tear and take it as proof. But thousands of cases where there is no reaction at all, she will simply ignore. That's how our brain works. We see what we want to see. In total, there are just as many arguments against as for, and they carry weight too. So, it's time for the verdict. Does a person hear after death? And the answer is not as simple as you'd like. On one hand, science confirms the brain does not die instantly. That's a fact. The auditory cortex can actually respond to sounds in the last minutes of life. There are documented cases where patients described what they heard during clinical death. But on the other hand, brain response does not equal conscious perception. Clinical death is not real death. False memories are real, and chemical processes in the dying brain can explain any auditory experiences. So our verdict is as follows. The statement after death a person can still hear everything in its classic sense is a myth. A dead brain cannot process information, period. But, and this is an important but, during the process of dying, in the last minutes before biological death, hearing may be preserved. And that is no longer a myth. That is a scientifically confirmed reality. The line between life and death is thinner than we thought. And in that gray zone, perhaps the last thing we'll ever experience is sound. But wait, we promised an unexpected twist. And here it is. In 2019, scientists from Yale University conducted conducted an experiment. They took pig brains that had been dead for 4 hours. 4 hours after death. The brains had been sitting in a refrigerator. Scientists connected them to a special system that pumped a nutrient solution through the brain's blood vessels. The system was called BrainX, and the results stunned the entire scientific world. Neurons began to function again. 4 hours after death, synapses restored some of their connections. Cells began to consume glucose. The brain was not alive in the full sense. There was no consciousness, but cellular activity returned, and this completely changes our understanding of brain death. Previously, it was believed that neurons die irreversibly within minutes without oxygen. That turned out to be wrong. The brain turned out to be far more resilient than we thought, and this opens up frightening questions. If neurons can recover 4 hours after death, then what exactly is happening in the brain in the first minutes after death? Could there be something there that we simply don't know how to measure yet? Some form of perception? Some fragments of consciousness? We simply don't know yet, and that is perhaps the most frightening thing. Here's another bonus fact that will surprise you. In 2022, researchers recorded brain waves in a person at the moment of death. An 87-year-old epilepsy patient unexpectedly died during an EEG recording, and his brain generated gamma waves in the last 30 seconds of life. Gamma waves are associated with conscious memories, meditation, and dreaming. Scientists suggested that at the moment of death, the brain may replay memories of an entire lifetime, your whole life flashing before your eyes. An expression we thought was a metaphor may actually be reality. And if the brain is capable of that in that moment, then the ability to hear is far from the most amazing thing it might be capable of. Death is not an instant switch, it's a process. And we are only beginning to understand it. So next time you're saying goodbye to someone on their final journey, speak. Say kind words, just in case. Because science cannot yet say with 100% certainty that you are not being heard. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, tell us, do you believe the dead can hear? See you in the next episode of Myth or Reality.